From impressive manufacturing to unbelievable mythology. Stay tuned to number 1 to find out what happened to the Ancient Minoans. Number 10. Discovery. When Sir Arthur Evans first discovered part of a building on the Greek island of Crete back in 1900, he probably didn't realize exactly what it was he was discovering and just how big of a discovery it would be. What he was uncovering, though, was part of the lost Palace of Knossos and the discovery of the oldest recorded residence of Greece, having lived from around 2000 BC until 1400 BC, and before this discovery, the only known reference to these people could be found in some of the work by Homer. Not the dad from The Simpsons, but rather the legendary Greek author of the book The Odyssey to Eteocretans. The Minoans were around during the Bronze Age, and not only did they survive, but they flourished in this time, not only setting a name for themselves in their time, but also being something of a mystery in modern times. Don't believe me? Stick around and see why they were so highly regarded. Number 9. Never called Minoans. Surprisingly, although we know them today as the Minoans, it is more than likely not what they would have called themselves back when they ruled. We actually named them after their king, Minos, that was said to rule the Palace of Knossos. In fact, Minos may not have even been his real name, but rather more just his title, as the word Minos is actually their ancient Cretan way of saying governor or leader. Credit for the name can be given to the very same man that discovered this civilization, good old Sir Arthur Evans. The actual name of this ancient and dominating civilization may never be found, though, due to there being no mention of it in any known text. Number 8. Written translations. Despite the Minoans being discovered a little over 100 years ago, there is still little known about their language, and any tablets found with writing are still laying in wait to have their secrets translated. The reason for the mystery around their language is primarily because of its age. Predating Greek, it is a form of writing known as Linear A. This style of writing eventually morphed into Linear B and would again later become Greek. The cause for the confusion around the language is the fact that although there are similarities between Greek and Linear A, there are still too many differences between the two, and to date there are no known keys that can be found to decipher the language for us to understand. What this means is that very little is actually known about the Minoans aside from the information we've been able to piece together from what we found inside buildings and surrounding areas. So, for the moment, very little is known about their beliefs or history, which is rather unique in modern times when you can get a smart app that can just interpret basically any foreign language. Mental note: develop Linear A translation app. Number 7. Women in high regard. Equality between men and women is something that has been debated for centuries, and while this seems like a common sense no-brainer, it's unfortunately something that may continue to be fought about for years to come. In the case of the Ancient Minoans, though, they were unique in that they held women in a higher regard than men, often appointing them to higher positions in the community than the men. Although the cultural driver behind this is not fully documented, there are two possible working theories. The first is that it's possible that men saw women as the ones responsible for the expansion of their people, being that they're the ones that give birth, and historians believe that the link between intercourse and childbirth had not yet been discovered. Considering there are 9 months between conception and birth, I could see how there could be a disconnect. The second theory is that men spent a lot of time at sea, leaving the women to essentially run the land and thus take up all the powerful and influential positions while the men were away. Whatever the reason, their view on women was still quite different from any other of the time, and even in modern cultures. Number 6. Religion. There is not much that is known about the Minoan religion except for the fact that it played an important role in their lives. What is known, however, is that the male deities played more of a minor role in their beliefs and that their goddesses a far more important role in their religion. But with that said, it's not known if they had multiple goddesses or simply one with different aspects to her. It is known that there was one goddess called the Mistress of the Animals, but there are also two others, the Snake Goddess and also a Household Goddess. there is some speculation that the Greek goddesses Hera and Artemis may have actually originated from these Minoan deities. Throughout Crete, there are plenty of shrines that have been discovered in caves, on hilltops, and in houses throughout the former Palace of Knossos. Some of the artifacts and fossils found around these suggest that they also partook in dance, and sometimes even sacrifice as a part of their rituals. These traditions were likely passed on to other areas of Greece as time progressed. Be sure to check out our video on ancient Greece so you can see the similarities and differences between these two cultures. Number 5. The Minotaur in the Labyrinth. If you have ever played a game or even watched a movie featuring a Minotaur, you can probably thank the Minoans for their very own Minotaur that was rumored to live there. If you don't know what a Minotaur is already, it is a half-man, half-bull. And in the case of the one in the labyrinth, it was the offspring of the then Cretan queen, Pasiphae, when she fell pregnant from a beautiful and majestic bull after having a spell put on her, causing her to fall in love with the beast. Interesting. Anyway, the resulting offspring was a Minotaur that quickly grew to a monstrous size and developed a taste for human flesh. As such, the then king ordered for a labyrinth to be built to house the Minotaur, and he was given offerings on an annual basis in order to stop his bloodlust. It was said that any who entered the labyrinth would never be seen again. That was until the Athenian hero Theseus volunteered to be a tribute before killing the Minotaur, bringing an end to its bloodlust. Number 4. Strong trade routes. While the Spartans are known worldwide for their warriors, and while war was not uncommon at the time, the Minoans, it seems, did not have any enemies. When Knossos was dug up in the 19th century, there were no signs of fortifications to protect them from others, nor were there any signs of a struggle found either. The reason for this was that the Minoans were exceptionally good at trade, and with the crafting of anything, from pottery or weapons to olives and olive oils, which were the main export at the time. Another aspect of what made them so successful was their seafaring ways. Because of this, they were able to travel long distances relatively safely compared to most other civilizations of the time, who were still traveling mostly by land, which was both costly and slow in comparison to the Minoan methods. As such, there is evidence that they held monopoly over most of the Mediterranean, and that their trade routes included Syria, Asia Minor, and even Egypt. Number 3. Bull leaping. We all love extreme sports, whether it's doing them or simply watching. It seems like sometimes we just can't get enough of it. The Minoans were no exception to this, and they had an extreme sport of their own, now known as bull leaping. This sport was much like the matadors of today, but far more dangerous. And it didn't involve a cape and jumping out of the way. Basically, it seemed that the objective of the sport was to get a bull to charge you and then grab onto the horns while using the bucking of their heads to launch you up and over its body. Of course, no writings of the sport have been translated, so what we know about the sport today is based purely on any surviving paintings from the era, which actually means that we may be completely wrong. I mean, it is entirely possible that these were not games, but rather punishments. Only further translations of their works will tell. Number 2. Potential warrior culture. So far, everything we know about the Minoans reveal that they were relatively peaceful and chose to do trade rather than to fight against neighboring opposition. While this is known to be true, there is also some evidence that they may have had warriors despite their seemingly peaceful lives. We already mentioned that they were excellent craftsmen and that they made weaponry that was exported to other places in exchange for trade. But there were also many weapons and even armor found among the debris of Knossos. Aside from these, there were also violent undertones in their writings, and while it has not been translated, glyphs of bows, arrows, spears, and daggers were common pictures among their writings. Of course, there is no real evidence of them being warriors, considering the palace was not even well fortified, but some speculate that the island's natural rough terrain could have been used in the place of building fortifications. Much like a lot of the history surrounding the Minoans, we may never discover the truth. Before we get to number 1, take a moment to like this video below. While you're there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on future videos from Zero to Hero. Number 1. Mysterious disappearance. As you might expect, it is quite unusual for a huge trading superpower to suddenly disappear, and yet it seems that this is exactly what happened to the Minoans. There is really not much known about what caused them to disappear. Some speculate that they were eventually overrun and destroyed by another economic superpower from another land. Others, on the other hand, say that the volcano Thera erupted and put an end to their reign. There are, however, problems with both of these arguments, such as when the ruins of the Palace of Knossos was discovered, there were no obvious signs of the land being forcefully taken, nor were there signs of the volcanic rock in the area. By the time the Mycenaeans moved onto the island, it is believed that it was already long abandoned by the Minoans. So basically, apart from these two theories, what actually happened to the Minoans is really anybody's guess. Tell us what you think happened to this ancient people in the comments below, and take care.